now we have, unfortunately, they say hindsight is 20/20. We have the vision of hindsight to show us. Then from the center, the spirit of Judaism will radiate out. Oh yes, I wish it had happened. This Shabbat Zion, the next paragraph, which concerns itself with the preservation of Judaism at a time when Jewry is suffering so much as something odd and unintelligible to the political Zionisms. Just as the demand of Rabbi Yochanan, here we go, the great hero. I didn't even have to predict it. I could have told you. I didn't even know we were coming to it. Just as the demand of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai for Yavne was strange and unintelligible to the comparable party of his time. There we go. Zionism cannot satisfy those Jews who care for Judaism. So, okay, great. Judaism is what he cares for, okay, but stand out of the way of the others who want to save the people. Well, he goes on like that. Next paragraph. But a political ideal which is not grounded in our national culture is apt to seduce us from loyalty to our own inner spirit. Okay. End of that paragraph on 268. So that in the end the Jewish state will be a state of Germans or Frenchmen of the Jewish race. I don't really care if that's the case personally, and Israel is very much like that at Tel Aviv. I mean, they just ape Western ways, particularly European ways, France and so on, sitting in cafes and you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the way people are. But if we can save them, that's all that matters to me. They let them live the way they want. That's their business how they want to live. They want to live like Frenchmen and Germans, so do we. We want to live like Americans. Everybody wants to live modern. I mean, this guy is like in some other universe. 269, and he's calling himself a Zionist. This is cultural Zionism. So we shall really, 269, be then much more than we are now, a small and insignificant nation, enslaved in spirit to the favored fortune, turning in envious and covetous eyes on the armed force of our powerful neighbors. This guy's got it all wrong. Our existence in such terms as sovereign state would not add a glorious chapter to our national history. That's exactly wrong. That's just the opposite occurred. Just the opposite occurred. Even with a few, 500,000 people, hardly anything in 1948. And they didn't turn an envious eye to their powerful neighbors. They fought to establish a state and survive. And it's a glorious chapter in the history of the Jewish people, and everyone recognizes it as such. And he is out in, you know, left field somewhere. Would it not be better for an ancient people, which was once a beacon of the world, to disappear than to be reaching such a goal as this? Yes, we should disappear rather than do it in this other way. In some about Zion, he's a thought of hiding. In some about Zion, no less than Zionism wants a Jewish state and believes in the possibility of the establishment of a Jewish state in the future sometime. But Zionism looks to the Jewish state to furnish a remedy for poverty and provide complete tranquility and national glory. About Zion knows that our state will not give us all these things until universal righteousness is enthroned and holds sway over all nations and states. You know, universal righteousness is someday going to come and solve all these problems. It looks to a Jewish state to provide only a secure refuge for Judaism. Yeah, that's why Weitzman demanded of the British only a homeland, not a state. You don't know that. The world doesn't know that. And Judaism and a cultural bond unite our nation. Zionism therefore began its work with political propaganda. But Zion begins with national culture. It sounds a bit like fascism there, because only through the national culture and for its sake can a Jewish state be established in such a way as to correspond with the will and needs of the Jewish people. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, you can read the next essay yourself. I think we've got enough of that to understand where he's coming from, and it's shockingly surprising in view of the historical situation. It would be fine maybe in the Middle Ages sometime. Or maybe 500 years from now when the Arabs are not trying to annihilate the whole world or something like that. Or Islam is not trying to drop a nuclear bomb on everybody or whatever, but you know, let's look at Weitzman. Weitzman is funny. You see, the Arabs think that the British made the Balfour Declaration to the Jews. The Balfour Declaration was where at the height of World War I, as I told you, when the British campaign into Palestine from Egypt was taking shape. I don't know if you saw Lawrence of Arabia, but if you did, you'll see some of what it's about. That's 1917. They knew they were going in. They also knew that Brandeis was a very big Zionist, and they wanted to bring the Americans into the war in 1917 if they could, and they knew Brandeis had Wilson's ear, and they knew that if they could, make the Jews some promises, it would help the war effort. If they were going to take Jerusalem, they knew they were going to take Jerusalem. They did. They rolled through Jerusalem, went on into Syria and Lawrence of Arabia. How many have seen that movie? You haven't seen Lawrence of Arabia? Oh my God, where are you living? It's a crummy movie, but it's a classic. I mean, it's not, all of it is highly romanticized. It's not the real story, but it's at least an attempt to do that story. Ends in Damascus with Lawrence and the Arab revolt and Emir Faisal and the people from Mecca going up to Damascus, and then the French and the British throwing them out of there. And Lawrence feeling like he betrayed his promises to them for the revolt. So anyway, Weitzman went to the Zionist congresses. He did scientific study in Switzerland. He decided to move to England. I think he was born in the middle of some Polish-Russian area, Pinsk. And he moved to England in 1904, which was the year of Herzl's death, if you recall. He got on to the University of Manchester faculty, and then he helped produce some chemical which was vital for naval gunpowder. But that's not why the British made the Balfour Declaration, because Weitzman helped in their chemical researches. He was no Einstein. Just worked on one of the labs, but the Arab propaganda is that the Jews got Palestine because Weitzman, in return for Weitzman's work for the British government. It's just nonsense. The British aren't that childish in what they do. They don't really give gifts for reasons like that. He was a delegate at the Second Zionist Congress in 1898. And he was never really sympathetic to Herzl.